Good evening and welcome to Coach World TV. My name is Terry Yoffe, and tonight as my guest I have the very lovely Maddie Weinreich. Hi Maddie.
Hi Terry.
How are you?
Good to be with you tonight.
Thank you. So this is really special for me to have Maddie on our show. Maddie is an expert relationship systems coach and trainer. So relationships, I am sure everyone is dying to know about this subject because we're all in relationships. So tell us how you got started, and I know that one of the things Maddie does is she is a trainer for the organization Relationship and Systems Coaching group. So
That's right.
Maddie,
Great.
on to you.
Thanks so much, Terry. It's great to be here with you tonight, and I'm really excited to be sharing some information with you all about relationship coaching and what it can do. And as Terry mentioned, I'm a trainer with CRR Global, and I travel around the world training relationship coaches. I go to wonderful places like Dubai and Amsterdam and Spain. I just got back from Barcelona, in fact. And so I work training relationship coaches, and these are coaches who work with teams, with couples, with partnerships, with families, and with individuals to improve their relationships.
Well, you're not going to leave us with just they improve their relationships, are you? More.
Well, it helps them to become more successful and to actually be the creators and designers of their relationships. By using relationship coaching skills, individuals, couples, teams, partnerships, business organizations all can enhance their ability to work together to be more successful and to be more cohesive as a unit.
And I actually took the relationship systems coaching training 2 years ago, and certainly I've become more aware of my relationships and how they work. Maddie actually was our guest speaker at our ICF NYC members meeting last night, and she started with this really great story about her insights into relationships, and she started looking through a microscope when she was 4 years old.
Yeah, I was just a little kid. I was watching my parents in their relationship, and I noticed that my parents both wanted the same thing. They both wanted to be seen and known and loved by the other one. And they tried to communicate that to each other, but their communication kind of went like this. They never really connected. They didn't really hear what the other wanted. And they both were able to say what they wanted, but no one was able to hear or work with that. So as a little kid, I was really fascinated by that, because in my mind, I was thinking, well, if you would just listen to what she's saying and you would just listen to what he's saying, you actually both want the same thing. So I went on a mission as a young child, looking for relationships that worked. And so I would maybe do a sleepover at a friend's house, and I'd look at their parents, or I was just noticing. I was very aware of relationships. And I noticed that most relationships didn't work, and yet there were many that did. So I was looking for what are the components that made a relationship successful. And so I just figured as I went through life, I was going to do a much better job than my parents did. So I went out, and as a young person, I got married, and I was determined that this was going to be a great marriage. And my first marriage only lasted 10 weeks. So I realized I didn't know squat about relationships. I could not do it better than my parents. I did not have anything figured out, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing out there.
Oh, gosh.
So that was a total disaster.
And so my parents should never have been married. Forget about relationship. So I wonder, and again, I think about relationships back then and relationships today. Back then, I wonder how much people really had time to work on relationships.
Good point, Terry.
Everyone worked, there were roles. The father went out and worked.
Yes.
Had a job to do, bring home the money, the bacon. The mom mostly stayed home and tended to the family. So here we fast forward where concept of relationships so my perspective is that they've changed.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, I just love what you're saying. We were more in survival mode when we were growing up as kids.
Right.
It was after World War II. It was after the Depression. Our parents were maybe part of that depression. And so it was a much different lifestyle. Now we have two parents earning a living. There's much more luxury. People don't even cook as much as they used to. They don't even eat together the way they used to. And there's been a lot of personal development work that individuals do. An individual might work with a therapist over time. They might work with a coach. There's an interest in self-improvement, in personal development, in growth. And that wasn't even really considered back in those days. So now that there's an interest in personal growth and development for individuals, the next natural step is really for those individuals, when they come together in a relationship, they know that there can be more. They know that things could be better. They know that they have some control over what happens because they're responsible for who they are in relationship.
Yeah, I definitely, agree. And going back then, people had dinner together, but the conversation, they just assumed that here we are, we're married, we've been married for, okay, it's going to go on. What comes to mind, and I don't know why, is Fiddler on the Roof, and, her saying, whatever it is about being married, of course I love you, I cook for you, I wash for you, and that's marriage. And today it's so different. I think there's much more divorce today than there was back then. People are looking for different things. Yes, my parents both worked. So I had a mother that was at the forefront of working and actually was the breadwinner of our family. And, watching relationships develop and change over the years, it's very important to think about two people, who they are, different entities. How do two people come together and kind of cohabitate when they're from two different planets sometimes?
The other thing is people don't really have to get married anymore.
That's true, right.
Because people can live together. It's considered quite normal. They can have children together. Someone could raise a child on their own. It's considered quite normal nowadays.
Yes.
There isn't that economic drive that there maybe was historically. So if people are getting married, it's like, why do we want to get married? What is it that we want to do together? And it's got to be more worthwhile than me being on my own.
Right.
So there's a reason to want to look at relationships and look at what's interesting and look at what do we want to create together.
Right. So at lunch, Maddie and I were talking about relationships. What does it really mean to be in relationships? We're in relationship with other people all the time and with ourselves, which is probably the one relationship that most people don't think of first.
Right.
How do you, or us as more you than me, relationship coaching play into all of this? Because, we talked about that people think relationship coaching could be therapy. When, as one of the things we talked about was communication. So talk a little about what we said at lunch today.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we're in relationship whether we like it or not, whether we know it or not. We're in relationship. What coaching can do is to help people to become conscious and intentional about their relationship so that they can actually do something with a purpose, with an intention. That's kind of the difference between maybe the past and the present. That now people, like I said, people are doing more personal growth, more personal development work. They're more conscious of who they are as an individual. People are coming into a better relationship with themselves. They're learning to know and love themselves more and be aware of who they are and what's important in their life. And so in doing that, and they come into relationship with another person, there's this we can actually design how we want to be together. We can create how we want to be together, who we want to be together. We can design our relationship to support each of us as individuals, and so that we can grow as a pair or a partnership or a business partnership or a couple. And we can do that with intention.
So how many people do you think, and I'm not asking for an exact number, really come to a relationship with all armed with all of these tools?
I don't think anybody does. I don't know. I don't know.
Today.
I don't think. Maybe a few, really, that come ready with relationship skills.
Or some.
I think most of us bumble along. I think most relationships, it's just we get together, there's a, and we're talking about romantic relationships, right? Because when we're talking about relationship coaching, there are romantic relationships, there's business partnerships, there's business teams, there are corporate environments, organizational. We're all in relationship. And some of the skills that we use as a relationship coach, we can use those skills with those different kinds of relationships. So that's kind of interesting too.
Could you kind of go through a few of them and how you would use them differently?
Yeah, sure.
In a personal relationship, intimate relationship versus team or business or...
Right, yeah. So when we're working with business teams, we're usually working with a team that wants to be more cohesive. A team that wants to maybe improve their bottom line, be more successful. Maybe there's been a high turnover on a team. Maybe people are quitting. Maybe there's a lack of creativity or a kind of flatness on the team. Maybe there's confusion around the roles of who's doing what on the team. So teams come to coaching with all kinds of challenges that are going on in their system, in their relationship team. And so we use a lot of these skills to help people improve their emotional intelligence, which is how they operate as an individual with their own emotional experience and are able to articulate that, and help them develop social intelligence, which is developing an empathetic understanding of what's happening with the other people on the team. And then we teach them something called relationship systems intelligence, which is looking at what wants to happen on that team, what needs to happen for that team to be more successful. So even if there's conflict on a team, we're looking at that as there's a voice of the system. There's something in that system that wants to change, that needs to change. So conflict isn't really seen as bad. It's seen as an indication that something needs to change on that team. So it's seen as a signal. So that's a little bit of how we do it in teams. And there are all kinds of exercises for stimulating creativity, for creating from each other and developing new ways of being together. And so they come, business teams come for that innovation, for that pumping them up or giving them new ideas or helping them look at it in a fresh way with a good new perspective. And then with couples, couples are actually much more challenging to work with and coach than business teams, because when you're in a couple, it's like nobody knows you better than your partner, right? Nobody can get to you more quickly than your partner, and no one can kind of get under your skin more easily than your partner can. So those situations usually have more intensity to them. Business teams have plenty of intensity, but the couples, the intimate relationship, there's usually a lot of intensity. There's often toxic behavior that shows up in relationships. So as a coach, I'm often educating the couple about what are these toxic behaviors. And there are actually 4. Do you want to know what they are? I know you know what they are.
What they are,
but how about if we tell our viewers? There are 4 toxic behaviors that show up in relationships, and this was discovered by John Gottman. He did a tremendous amount of research with couples, and he found that there are 4 behaviors that when they show up in relationships, that they eat away at the integrity of the relationship over time. So the first one is blame, which also includes criticism. So it's that kind of finger pointing. You did it. It's your fault. If only you would be different. That's kind of
I'm
blame.
perfect.
Yeah, I'm perfect, but over there, you've got to change, right? So blame, and then often when someone's blaming, the other partner will be defensive.
Right.
And I did it because, or, it's your fault that I had to do this because now I'm in this situation. So defensiveness is the second toxin. And the third one is contempt. Contempt. And that is really just, it can be as simple as sarcastic remarks, eye rolling, hostile humor, things like that. Just this constant, it kind of eats away at the relationship. And the fourth one is stonewalling. And stonewalling is the cold shoulder, talk to the hand, physically present but emotionally checked out. These are things that we do in relationship, and we all do these things.
Right. And there's one more.
What's that?
Bullying.
Bullying, yeah.
That was added.
Somebody added that. Yeah, I heard somebody talked about bullying, that's another one. Toxic behavior. So sometimes we'll just educate couples about that, and they'll start to realize, oh, I didn't know that had a name. I didn't realize I was doing that. I didn't realize the impact it was having on the relationship.
Right.
And then we teach them antidotes. Here's what you could do instead. Because those behaviors happen for a reason. There's a reason that people are doing those things. There's something they may be trying to protect or something they're trying to convey, but it's an unskillful way. And often it pushes the partner away.
And my hunch is that these toxic behaviors have been there forever. And people, that's how they know how to relate. They probably learned it from their parents. So, it's like generational when you think about how people interact. And they bring it forth, and then they continue the generational behavioral patterns.
Generational and societal.
Right.
This isn't something they only learn in their families. This is continues in their day-to-day life. This is what happens with kids at school. If you turn on the news, I mean, it's all about the finger pointing and the blaming and being defensive about things. So, this isn't part of our society. So it really is kind of helping couples and business teams, because we look at toxic behaviors on business teams as well. It's about breaking that chain of what's the norm to start to find more productive and skillful ways of interacting with each other, so that you can create from each other. There's so much available in relationships in terms of creativity if people are working together and collaborating together.
Right. That's so true. I think for me, knowing how my parents were, I actually had to forgive them because they didn't know any better. They had learned from their parents how to be, and they just paid it forward, if you will.
Exactly.
And were exactly the way you were. They were. And somewhere much later in my lifetime where I couldn't blame them anymore.
Exactly. It's like they're guilty of doing it, but they're really not to blame.
Right. And I had to let it go. What about
that's what we all have to do.
Organizations where they encourage not such great behavior?
Oh, say more. Like what kind of...
Well, there are organizations where they allow all of that Russell stuff to take place. And it's competitive. Not that competition isn't good, but it's the way competition is brought forth. Or they don't, it's not that they encourage it, but they don't do anything about it. Where I have worked with many clients who have had bosses that you'd want to take out to the field and shoot because they have no business being top managers. They just don't. They're horrible. And one of my clients finally left. She couldn't endure it anymore. And the company doesn't do anything about this type of behavior where she bullied and controlled. So that does go on in companies, and
it does.
They allow it.
And it sounds like she decided to go somewhere else, that wasn't the environment that was going to support her.
And she didn't have
working.
a job. She left because she couldn't take it anymore. And got something really great for her. I've had a few clients. So this is not one isolated incident.
There's a large cost to that toxic behavior. That's what increases employee turnover, and that's why people leave. So, if they want to do something about it, there are tools and skills that they can learn to do something differently. But if that's the way a company is operating, that's how it is. They might not be good for coaching.
No,
that might not be a group that wants to be coached.
But you know that they're not being productive as a company. At least
Yeah.
the people, they don't value their people.
Yeah. Yeah. So then that's that question, is that a company that you want to work for?
Oh, no,
You know,
but
yeah.
I'm just throwing that
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
that
I
there
agree.
are, it would seem that more companies are so willing to go to learning and growing and changing than not.
And I would say that this is new, though.
Yes.
This is new.
Yes.
This hasn't always been available for this team coaching approach. Is on the new side. So not everybody knows about it. Not every organization knows that they can actually get help and improve the quality of their relationships. So it's on the new side.
New side, yes. And I've heard, so I don't know, this is third-party hearing, that a lot of this started to come into play when the whole financial world started to collapse, and you had all of these top-level, high IQ people who had no emotional intelligence. They ruined their companies. They ruined them into the ground, and then they were let go. But the financial companies were in ruin, and again, hearsay.
Yeah, it's too bad.
It started back when people really had to take stock of where they were.
Yeah, yeah. They could have used some coaching, probably.
There are probably some people that can't be coached around these things. They just don't see it or don't want to see it. I think people with, again, making it up because I have no idea, egos that you just can't break through.
Yeah. It's really sad, isn't it? But now there's an alternative. I mean, now there is coaching. Now there are team coaches out there. There are people helping organizations to develop those skills and abilities.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to grow. Not everybody wants to change. Change can be kind of scary.
Yes,
it's
it
like,
is.
we know what works, and let's stick with what works, and let's not rock the boat, and we'll just get along with how it is. That's normal. To change can be scary because it can take some courage, and you're going to have to swing out there and take some risks and do things differently than they've done before. And there are people who are ready to do that. Maybe they're so uncomfortable or so miserable where they're working that they'll say, we'll try anything.
Right.
And it's just so great that there are people, coaches out there that can really help them to develop.
Well, certainly what you do and ORSC does to do that, and relationships, everyone's trying to figure them out.
Yeah.
All of us.
You mentioned ORSC, Terry.
Yeah, so tell us
let's tell our listeners a little bit about
sure,
ORSC.
please
ORSC
do.
is the Organization and Relationship Systems Coaching Training Program, and this is run by CRR Global, and it's the only relationship systems coaching program that's certified by the International Coaches Federation. So far it's ahead of the pack, and it's a high level approach to working with the relationship as a system. And the idea of that is that we're looking at the individuals not just through their personal experience, because that's important, but also looking at the experience of each individual as a voice of the system to give us pointers and indicators of what wants to happen and needs to happen in the relationship.
Right.
So it's not so much about who's doing what to who. We're looking for what's wanting to happen in that relationship.
Right.
So that's what they teach, and there's a program, there's a fundamentals weekend, and then there are advanced courses, and there's a certification program. That's really a great add-on for coaches who are already working with individuals who may want to expand their range of clientele. They may want to work with pairs, they may want to work with partnerships, they might want to work with families or couples or business teams or organizations or nonprofits or community groups. I mean, it goes on and on. But coaches can expand their toolbox if they wanted to take some of these courses.
Well, I did.
Yeah, you did. That's where we met.
I did the fundamentals, and actually I was thinking about it, and I did it because Cynthia was the coach, and I love her. And having been a coach for probably 8 years, this was just another tool for me to really add, and I even work with individuals on it, so they don't have to be teams, because it's also about being in relationship with yourself and
Yes.
using a lot of these tools for your own
Yes.
self, and how are you out in the world.
Yeah.
And I loved what you had said about that we have to take ownership for ourselves, how we're out in the world, and our relationships. And we
Yeah.
can't say, gee, Jim did it, and why
Right.
didn't he do this? And you are sitting back and saying, well, I had nothing to do with it. I was being my best. So, yeah, it's a great opportunity. Lots of new language.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I really loved was the idea of the third entity.
Yeah, so
That
the
was-
third entity,
yeah.
that's where we're looking at not just the two people who are in relationship, but what is the relationship between them? That's actually who the client is. So we're looking for what are the qualities of that relationship, what are the values of that relationship, what's the wisdom of that relationship. So it's really about learning how to work with that third entity.
Yeah,
It's pretty exciting.
That's actually interesting. So we only have a few more minutes. I know it went quickly. Maddie, why don't you first give us your website so
Okay,
people
yep.
want to find you?
CoachMaddie.com, and that's Maddie. I'd love to hear from you and have you take a look at it.
Well, that's great.
Thanks.
Also, I want to thank you. And we're going to stretch this out a little bit because we do have time. To really coming here, Maddie comes from New Hampshire, so it's not like she got the subway or the bus and was able to hop down here. This was a trip for her, and her and her husband Roger to come and really be with us. And last night she did a great job with our group, our members, and talking about and doing exercises for relationship coaching. So, and again today being on the show. So
Yeah, you're welcome.
thank you so much
You're
for
welcome, Terry.
being
Yeah.
here, for doing the show, and I hope that we will stay in touch because now
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And we have another
That's great.
minute, so what do we want to leave
Well, thank
with?
you, Terry, for having me. It's been wonderful coming down here. I loved meeting you in the class,
Yes.
and I'm so glad that you're still working with relationship coaching.
yeah.
And I'm looking forward to relationship coaching expanding, especially in New York City, because the world needs relationship coaches, and we need people to come out there and work with relationships. There are millions of relationships out there that need to be coached, so we need more coaches to join us.
Well, thank you, and thank you for being here and staying with us and enjoying our show, and I hope you will come and see us next Monday night. So thank you.
Bye-bye.